The Bible is a living word that reads us as we read it. It's a person, a voice that proves that time is not linear, as one sentence can confirm the past, guide the present, and declare the future. You are here. I am here. He is here. We are here right now. In the tomorrow of yesterday and in the yesterday of tomorrow, I thank you for joining today. So we're back. Thank you so much for joining once again. In our last episode, we talked about the responsibility that was given to Joshua after the passing of Moses to ensure that the people made it into the land that was promised them, that was promised their ancestors. And one of the first things that Joshua did was he sent in two spies. Now, the spies went in, they scouted out the land of Jericho and found themselves at the mercy of this prostitute named Rahab. Now, Rahab hid them when the king's men came looking for them, and she also gave them the scoop and let them know, y'all, man, like, I don't know what you heard, but we scared of y'all. Like, we've heard what y'all been up to, and we've heard what your Lord's been up to. Y'all got a reputation. We not trying to mess with you. Like, we're terrified of you, which was really great intel. And so these spies, in exchange for Rahab's kindness, just let her know when we come back to take over, we got you. Like, we will make sure that no harm is done to you or your family. Just make sure that you have them here in this household because we coming to destroy this place, but we need to make sure that you're safe. So have your loved ones here. And so anyhow, Rahab allowed these spies to escape from her home out of the window, and she dropped this scarlet rope and they were able to climb down this scarlet rope from her window and make it back to safety. And so they let her know, leave the scarlet rope in the window. This will be a marking of the home that we are not to destroy. And so the spies went back and gave Joshua a great report. Hey, they're scared of us. The land is ours for the taking. And God echoed that for Joshua. That's where we pick up. God put some things into order. He let them know some things needed to be done and taken care of. They needed to purify themselves. And the people needed to be very mindful of the moving of God. And so he let them know to watch the priest and to watch the Ark of the Covenant, which was a very well-crafted box that housed some very significant things that was symbolic of God's sovereignty and his provision and supernatural ability. And so very quickly, the Ark of the Covenant was something that was constructed during the days of Moses. And inside of it, there were three things that were stored. The first thing was manna, which was a symbol of God's supernatural provision. And the manna was actually this foreign substance that God rained down from heaven. And the Israelite people were able to gather this substance and make bread or a wafer out of it. There was not food that was just readily available for them in the wilderness. So God made sure that his people were eating good by raining down this manna from heaven. And so that was stored in the Ark of the Covenant. Another thing that was stored were these stone tablets that God wrote on with his fingertip. He wrote on these stone tablets the covenant law. A lot of us know them as the 10 Commandments. And those were the things that God implemented to give guidance or a framework of how people were to show love to God, number one, and also to one another. So that was God's sovereignty, his law, his covenant expression. That's what that was symbolic of. And another thing that was in the Ark of the Covenant was Aaron's rod. Now, you have to go back and read Numbers chapter 16 and number 17 to get a better summary or to really get the meat of the story. But long story short, Aaron went toe to toe with these guys who really thought that they could do his job better. And as a sign of the fact that God chose Aaron and not them, all of them were to bring their rods, like this stick, and to put it in the presence of the Lord. And the stick that budded almonds. The person who the stick belonged to was the one that God chose. And so it was Aaron's rod. So it was symbolic of God's supernatural ability and his favor and selection. And so, anyhow, this box, this Ark of the Covenant, was very sacred. It symbolized the presence and sovereignty of God in large part. So God gave the people instructions to follow it. They were instructed also to purify themselves and just cleanse themselves from all of the impurities or sin, and just get prepared. Then God did something very interesting. There's this parallel between Joshua and Moses, because God tells the priest to take the Ark of the Covenant and to start walking into the Jordan River. Now, when they started walking into the Jordan River, the water started stacking and it cut off upstream so that the water was no longer flowing. And the people were able to march across the Jordan River and they didn't even get wet. It was dry ground. Now, this was parallel to the story that happened with Moses and the Red Sea. When the Israelite people were leaving slavery, when they were escaping Egypt, they were walking out of slavery. God dried up the ground for them to be able to march over the Red Sea. And now that they're about to walk into the promised land, God dries up the Jordan River and allows them to march over on dry ground. And he gives instruction for a man from each tribe to collect a stone and to take the stone and to build a monument on the other side of the Jordan River, so that when the children would ask generations from then, they would be able to look at the monument and retell the story of God's favor and how he rescued them from slavery and how he brought them into the promised land. So another thing that had to be taken care of before they were able to move forward was there needed to be this mass circumcision again, because there had not been circumcision that had taken place since the Israelites had left Egypt. And that was a really big deal for God, because it was a sign, it was a symbol of the covenant agreement that God had with Abraham. And he told him, this needs to happen from generation to generation as a symbol of my covenant agreement with you. And so after all of these males were circumcised, then the Lord actually told him, like, okay, I have removed the shame and disgrace that my people have experienced as slaves in Egypt, and now they are free and they're marked with the symbol of their identity as my chosen people. And now you're about to enter into the promised land. So they celebrated, and they celebrated Passover, which again was when their doorposts were marked with the blood of the lamb, and the death angel couldn't go in and kill them, but wiped out all of the firstborns of Egypt. So they celebrated the Passover, and they were able to eat food from the land. And the day that the people started eating food from the land is when the manna stopped falling from heaven. God provided for them supernaturally up until the natural was able to sustain them. After that, it was time. Joshua had this run-in with an angel of the Lord. He saw what appeared to be a man with his sword drawn, and Joshua was like, yo, whose side are you on? Are you friend or foe? And the angel was like, neither. I am the commander of the Lord's army, and you need to take off your shoes because the ground you're standing on is holy. And again, this is a parallel because Moses experienced a similar situation when he was faced with the burning bush, and he heard the voice of God from the burning bush that told him to remove his shoes because the ground he was standing on was holy. So anyhow, after that, God gave Joshua and he gave the people instruction. He gave them a strategy, and he said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go in. I'm going to have some armed men marching in front of 7 priests that are going to be carrying the Ark of the Covenant. I'm going to have some more armed men marching behind the priests who are carrying the Ark of the Covenant. And then I'm going to have all of the people lined up behind them. And here's what I need you to do. The 7 priests are each going to be carrying a horn. And as you go into the city, I need you to march around the city of Jericho one time with the priest blowing on their horns. And then after you march around the city one time, go back to the camp. And the second day, I need you to do it again. And then I need you to do it again. And then again and again and again. So for 6 days, they were instructed to go line up and march around the city of Jericho one time that day, while the priests, these 7 priests, are blowing on their horns, and then they were to go back to the camp. However, on the 7th day, they were given instructions to march around the town of Jericho 7 times. And on the 7th time, the priests were going to blast a long horn. And when they did, that was a sign for the Israelites to begin shouting. And when the shout happens, the walls would fall down. Now, let me run that back, because this is exactly what the people did. And when I run it back, I'm going to run it back from the perspective of the Jerichoans. Imagine with me, if you will. Now, you already scared of these people because you know their reputation and you know the reputation of their Lord. So imagine you at home minding your business, terrified because you don't know when the other shoe is about to drop. And all of a sudden you see the very people you're afraid of marching around your home, and they not saying nothing, because the people were given strict instructions not to speak. Don't say a word, just march. So the people aren't saying anything. They're just marching with these priests blowing on their horns, and they march left, 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 right, left, 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 right, left. They march around the city one time and then they leave. And you're looking around like, where did they go? And then day 2, early in the morning, at the crack of dawn, they do it again. You wake up to the sound of their feet marching left, 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 right, left. And these priests are blowing on this horn, and you don't know what's happening. Day 3, it happens again. Your skin begins to crawl. Your heart is palpitating. You can't hold down anything you've eaten. You're terrified because you don't know that they're going to do this for 6 days. And then the 7th day, they're going to do it and blow it. You don't know. You don't know the strategy of God. All you know is that these guys keep showing up. These people, a massive amount of people, are showing up every day, and all they're doing is marching. They're not saying anything. They're not making up a bunch of noise. They're blowing the ram's horn and they're marching. They're not even speaking. They don't look at you. They're not giving you eye contact, nothing. They're marching. Left, 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 right, left. Now, I imagine that the Israelite people are really like, what are we doing? We just supposed to march. We're not supposed to say anything. We're warriors. We're supposed to take the land. How are we supposed to take the land? And now you got us out here marching. I'm not understanding how this correlates with us we're walking around the promise right now. We're not actually taking the promise. Help, like, make it make sense. The math isn't quite mathing, Lord. But they needed to follow instructions. Just do what I'm telling you to do and trust that what I'm telling you to do is going to get you exactly where I want you to be when I want you to be there. March. Don't say anything, just march. And that's what they did. So they marched around and around and around and around and around and around, which is interesting because their ancestors did that. They marched around the promise pretty much because they were rebellious and God was like, you can't get in. But anyhow, the people in the town have all of this time and opportunity to be repentant, of heart, to surrender. They can wave the white flag. Rahab did. She let them know what team she was on. So these people have an opportunity, but none of them that I know of did. But on day 7, the Israelite people rise early, early, early in the morning, and they get to it. They start marching, march. Left, left, right, left, left. And they go around once, left, right. And after they go around once, the Jerichoans are expecting, as they've seen, them to leave and go home. But that's not what they did. They marched around a second time, and a third time, and a fourth time. Now, by now, whoo, I am I'm ready to get out. I'm ready to dig myself a hole because why are they still marching? What is happening, right? Weaker and weaker and weaker they're getting, I imagine, because it's like they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. And then after the seventh time that they march around, the priests blow their horn loud and a long blast, which again was a sign for the people to begin to shout. So they began to shout. "Ah!" It was this sound of victory before the victory even took place. But they start to shout, and it's a lot of them. So the decibel level begins to rumble the ground, and the walls literally came tumbling down. The people went in and they were given instruction again, and the Israelites were told, destroy everything. Do not spare anything. The only thing that you are allowed to take out of here is the silver, the gold, the bronze, and the iron, because those are to be taken back to the treasury of God. And Rahab and her family, spare them. Everything else is to be destroyed. And that's exactly what the people did. The Israelites went in and they utterly destroyed everything in the city of Jericho, sparing only Rahab and her family and her loved ones, because she picked a side and she picked Team Jesus. She decided, nah, I'd rather march with y'all than against y'all, because I know what your Lord is capable of doing, and I want him to do it for me too. And he did. They rescued Rahab and her loved ones, her family. And Rahab and her family, from then on, they were walking it out with the Israelites. And Rahab, down the line, ended up hooking up with this guy named Salmon. I don't know if that's how you say it, but it feels right. With this guy named Salmon, and they had a baby boy named Boaz, who happens to be in the genealogy of Jesus Christ. You can find that in Matthew chapter 1. But anyhow, now the Israelites are in. They've taken the city of Jericho. And the promise that they've been longing for, been waiting for generations, is now at their fingertips. They're literally standing in it, in the beginning of it, because there's still a lot more to capture and to take over. We'll get into that in future episodes if the Lord will bless me with the opportunity to record more. Until then, bye for now.